Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to go over some lessons here. I intend to do all 15 lessons from the great Clyde Bedell's advertising course, and his course was called How to Convert White Space into Advertising That Sells. The course was made in 1964. And he was commissioned to create this course because he was a great advertising man and had made a lot of money for his clients, including he sold over 800,000 cars in the middle of the Great Depression using a wonderful advertising technique that forced all the salesmen of Ford to sell benefits, not features. He forced them to sell benefits and not features. Whereas General Motors at the time had been kicking Ford's butt year after year. For 10 years, they outsold Ford. And then they hired Bedell to change the situation. And Bedell created a benefit-driven sales book, and we can talk about that at another time. But the purpose of this series of videos is to introduce you to this great little handbook, this great little guidebook of how to create advertising that sells, how to convert white space in advertising that sells. The Newspaper Association commissioned him to create this course because they wanted newspaper advertisers to have more success and to be better advertisers, okay? And so there's really not a lot of difference today, since the newspapers are going out of business because of the web. But this is a great handbook for creating advertising on the web also. Okay? You're going to love this course because it'll teach you how to convert blank web pages into advertising that sells. Okay? So in this course, number one, part one, we're going to look over just a few things that interest me that I can tell you about it in a rough kind of way. Throughout the whole course, he shows you ads from the 40s, 50s, and 60s that he had collected that are an example of any points that he wants to make. And right up at the top here are 3 ads. Whoops, this one, and this one, and this one. And the graphics people are charged with selling, but I'm telling you, most advertising people, most graphic people, most website designers don't know anything about advertising. They don't know how to convert that white space into advertising that sells. And look at what the graphics person on this one did. This is an ad for furniture, but it uses sunglasses. All 3 of these ads look like they're selling sunglasses, but this one totally screws up, and it doesn't communicate that this ad is about furniture, and so the person who is interested in buying furniture will miss the point here from this ad. All right, so let's see. I want to show you another one. This ad right here, it was such a good ad that it sold 21 times the cost of the ad itself. If the ad cost them $100, then they sold $2,100 worth of dresses, which in the 60s was $2,100 was a lot of money. Okay. He reports here, page 2, that in 1964, the average person faced at least 4 million words of printed material each week. We might be faced with the same thing. 4 million words so the point being is that you've got to learn how to communicate effectively with your advertising. One of the things he goes over on page 2 is that all good selling is serving, and this is a common theme that he goes throughout the whole course. The advertising job, okay? The advertising job consists of planning. Six things. Number 1, planning. Number 2, creation. Number 3, production. Number 4, research. Number 5, follow through. And number 6, management. And this course is going to concentrate mostly on the creation of the ads. And it'll delve a little bit into planning, research, production, follow through, and management, okay? And those are all important elements of good advertising. All right, moving on here to what I find interesting on page 3. The 3 great requirements of every ad. The 3 great requirements of every ad. Number 1, your ad must be interesting or it will not get itself read. Number 2, your ad must be persuasive or it will not fulfill its selling function. And number 3, it must communicate with utmost clarity and quickly without effort on the part of the reader. It must communicate with utmost clarity, and it's got to do it quickly without effort on the part of the reader, because you can't bore people into reading your ad. Okay, so another point that he makes in this section is that yes, the ad is on the page or the web page. The ad is on the web page, but it really has to jump off of that page and get inside of them with the words and layout that you communicate. It must get inside of them because that's where the action really happens. It doesn't happen on the page. It happens inside the prospective buyer. Okay. So he argues that anybody can learn to write advertising that sells if he applies himself and learns the foundational principles. All right, even a person who's not used to writing can learn this. Okay, over here, I wanted to point out a little ad for water heaters right there. It was a small ad, but it did a really good job because it says water heaters quick installation. That's a really good benefit-driven ad with a tight space and in a small space with communicating a great message that people want to hear, that prospective buyers want to hear. Now, you might not be interested in a water heater at the moment, and so you're flipping around, you see an ad like this on the web, you wouldn't even pay attention to it. But if you're in need of a water heater, then you'd get it. He points out that these guys here, Circus Town, a store that sold clothing, that they had given up on advertising altogether because they couldn't make it pay until they came to Mr. Bedell's class and learned the correct way to make an ad, and then they became a famous advertiser. Let's see. Ad number 11 here is from a store called White's. They sold 100 special orders in 2 days. Let's see, where's the White ad? Oh yeah, men's clothing. They sold 100 orders in 2 days at a space cost. The advertising costs less than 1% of the amount of money that they brought in. And this outfit here, this Frank Stoller's, the one that's selling gloves right here, they were such good students of his. They became famous for selling the most furnishings per square foot of any store in their time period. Okay, let's go on here. What is a store? A store is a machine. We're talking about a retail store, or we could be talking about an online store. A store is a machine to sell merchandise profitably. A store is not a big display of some person's ego, the owner's ego. It's not all about your ego, but it is a machine that uses systems and procedures to sell merchandise profitably. Okay, let's see. Most ads are created by people who do not understand selling. Okay, you can understand graphics, but you've got to understand selling. Let's see, on page 7 here, it's the 3 ways, the only 3 ways that things may be sold are by display, by oral salesmanship, and by advertising. Okay? You can, I don't think anybody would argue with that. Flipping on here. Okay, here is an ad. It doesn't come out so well on this old paper, but he points out, see all this text in gray? He points out that you would never make a great store display window and then cover the window with gray film so nobody could see it. So one of the things that you must do is to communicate is to make sure that they can read it. If you're not going to write interesting, charming copy that sucks them in, at least don't hide it behind reverse type. That's a bad thing to do. Graphic artists are always doing that, putting black background with white type. You got to fight those artists, kick them in the butt and tell them who's paying the bill. And let's see here. Here is an ad that Mr. Bedell used to use in his advertising training courses, or his clinics, he calls them. And he would show this ad to the people in the class, and he'd ask them whether or not it was a good ad or a bad ad, and almost all the time people would say it's a bad ad because people are not going to read all of that copy. But Mr. Bedell, point by point, line by line, had to teach them that this actually is a great ad because people will not read all of that stuff, but prospects will. Prospects for refrigerators and lawnmowers have lots of questions and they want answers, and so they've got to be convinced that it's going to be okay to part with the money to buy the washing machine and the lawnmower. Okay? And then over here, he's got this ad that is for furniture. I'm sorry, carpet. It's a carpet ad. And these guys had studied under Bedell, and they used to run all of this ad and had dismal response to it until they used Bedell's method and added this little block right in here of copy, and it would produce. Let's see, what does he say here? It's advertisement number 22. I don't know. They came to expect 21 times the cost of their ad, 21 times the sales. So they were interested in maximum response, not just response. Maximum response, not just response. All right. Anyway, go click on the link nearby and you'll see the entire outline that I made for what is involved in Bedell's course, and I will from time to time send you more on the next parts. There's 15 parts, so we're going to do at least 15 videos on this subject here. And this is just the introductory part to get things rolling. We're going to go over exactly how to write the copy, the headlines, all the elements that you need. There's 31 selling elements that you can put inside an ad. And of course, the more selling elements you put inside the ad, the better the response will be. Okay? So, hope you enjoyed that, and we'll talk soon.